Well, how's it going over there? Now, this is somebody I work with who's an awesome artist, right? But they are learning how to record on their own. They're in the relatively new stages, so this is a common question. They're asking, do you happen to have recording advice for either turning the pad button on or off? Now, with this particular mic, they're saying also, I'll show you guys this is the combo. Do you happen to have recording advice for either turning the pad button on or off? If I turn the pad button on the Apollo, I have to basically crank it all the way up and get close to the microphone. But if I turn it off, then it's like hypersensitive and I have to hold it far away. So the idea here is he's neglecting to mention input knob volume. Like, where is that word here? Why are we talking about it? Your microphone is connected to an input on your interface. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, however many channels is in your interface. Your microphone is connected to one of those by plugging it directly in. All right. Now, you have to arm that track in Pro Tools or whatever DAW you're using, but on the interface itself, there's typically a volume control of some kind. And if not, then there's a way to gauge the trim on a preamp before your interface. If you just have converters, like I have, then you have your trim is on my preamps. So, and then I have another stage on the output of like a compressor or something before it hits the converter. So like there's several stages where you could manage the volume, but the goal is to keep the volume in the green, to keep it's okay if it grazes the yellow, but it shouldn't go past that. That's the idea. If it stays in the yellow all the time, it's a recipe for disaster unless you have a compressor on it and then you're looking at it and you can get to the top of those levels and you're never going to cross it. So if you don't have that going on and you're just recording dry, then this is what you do. And that's another thing. When you're tracking, especially somebody who has like an Apollo or a UAD satellite, one of those things, like I got, what you basically want to do is, and I don't have the Apollo, I got the satellite because I'm running converters, but what you want to do is basically always get a dry signal, but using those tools, like with the Apollo especially, or any UAD device, you can run the plugins while you're recording, so you could use a very good vocal chain. There's nothing saying that that's a bad idea. I think that's a great idea. So what's a good vocal chain? Let's talk about that for a second. In my opinion, a great vocal chain would be like a Neve 1073. And everybody's partial to like what they learned on, right? So like I learned on this. I learned that this sounds the best. And I went my whole initial life of hearing sounds through these kind of things. So I love the way these things sound. So I like the Neve 1073 as the preamp going into a Pultec style EQ of some sort, and I'm boosting low end and I'm boosting some high end, and then I'm compressing it with like an 1176 set generally at 4:1, generally medium attack to slow attack and a fast release generally. So this chain works well, and if you have the ability to pull up plugins that will let you use those pieces of gear, why not do that? I didn't mention the pad in my explanation, so I'm going to get into the pad real quick. It's simple. The pad is there if when you make your input volume on either your interface or your preamp, whatever that first stage is, meaning whatever you're recording, the source goes into something. Is that your interface? If so, that's the volume knob we're talking about, and that's where you engage the pad. Or is it on a preamp, like, you have a 1073 Neve or a BAE or whatever, you have a preamp, then that's the knob we're talking about, because that's the first stage, and that's where you would lower it. The point is, wherever you need to lower it first, if the lowest it goes is still too loud, you see what I'm saying? If the lowest it goes is still too loud, then hit it with the pad. That pad is there for that reason, for super high, SPL sources with lots of dB really quickly that are going to clip the signal. So if when you make it as low as you can, it's still clipping, then you engage the pad and your life is sweet. You might need it on a tom or a kick drum or something, a snare, depending on your mic and how hot it is, depending on all this stuff, your preamp, how hot all this stuff's going to matter to determine whether you'll need it or not. The pad is there for that reason. It's just a safety. If when you make it as low as you can, you need more. If you need more ceiling, then that will lower everything a lot to be able to give you more headroom. It's a good thing to have. Now, I don't put it on a vocal, because on a vocal you get your input level right, and you don't need that. So that's why that's the most important thing to note, that exists. Another simple basic tip: if you don't hear your mic no matter what you do, your mic's probably a condenser mic and you need 48 volt phantom power. So hit the button, turn it on. But if you do hear your mic, then that's not the issue, okay? And don't turn phantom power on unless you have a mic that needs it. It's not always supposed to be on. If you're using a ribbon mic with phantom power, you might fry it. So don't do that. Bad move, all right? No good. So certain basic things you got to know. Never turn on phantom power when you're using a ribbon mic. Never, all right? And also, never turn it on if you don't need it, because you might wind up plugging a ribbon or something in if you have one. So bad move. But only turn it on a condenser or something that needs it. Large diaphragm condensers generally are going to need it. Small diaphragm condensers generally are going to need it. Any condenser is generally going to need it. So these are things to keep in mind. Dynamics don't need it. Anyway, you guys got this. Piece of cake. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You'll see tons more coming. My name's Evan Jaffe. This is Custom Cut Studios. We got you. Take it easy.